What looked like a routine play in Game 2 of the first round of the NBA playoffs quickly turned into a major concern for the Oklahoma City Thunder as rising star Jalen Williams pulled up grabbing his left hamstring. So let's start with how this likely happened. So we see Jalen Williams drive to the basket, and if we're taking a look just specifically at this left lower extremity, we see it land somewhat in a normal basketball motion, but a little awkward as well. And then as we see him continue on with the play, we see that he grabs a hold here of more of that superior lateral portion of that backwards or posterior thigh, more directing towards potentially a hamstring injury. So hamstring injuries in basketball almost always occur during explosive acceleration, sudden deceleration, or even rapid changes in direction. So in Jalen Williams' case, this is most consistent with a non-contact strain, typically seen when that muscle is lengthening while contracting, what we call specifically an eccentric contraction of those hamstring muscles. So I think for this play here, this really demonstrates when their muscle is really eccentrically contracting. We see that that leg is almost at a full extension. What we know is that the hamstring flexes that knee joint primarily. So while that knee is in a complete extension, as we see right here, we see that it is contracting eccentrically to control the amount of knee flexion. The amount of force the hamstrings are trying to sustain is overcome by the amount of force from the ground going through the body, which leads to these muscle injuries like hamstring strains. We take a look at our anatomical model here, and to better understand the injury, we need to understand the structures that help make up the hamstring muscle group. This consists of three primary muscles, primarily the semimembranosus seen right here. Then we have our semitendinosus seen here. And then finally, the most likely one to be injured is this bicep femoris seen right here with the long and short head. All of which insert at this ischial tuberosity seen superior right here. And then come down and insert at either the lateral or medial portion of your tibia or fibula. As described earlier, the hamstring muscle group does collectively do knee flexion, which is bending the leg seen right here. They also participate in hip extension. Why this matters is because they span between two different joints, seen the knee joint right here as well as the hip joint. They are considered under constant tension during like sprinting movements, which make them very highly vulnerable for injury like strains as we see with Jalen Williams. So with all types of muscle strains or hamstring injuries, they're classified into three different grades. We have grade 1 being more mild, which is those micro tears in the muscle fibers, tightness with minimal strength loss, as well as player may still be able to walk or jog. While grade 2 is more moderate, so you have a partial tear, some noticeable pain, swelling, weakness, difficulty accelerating or cutting as well. And then finally have grade 3, which is your most severe, which is your full muscle tear or tendon rupture. This is an immediate loss of function, often requires surgery. The way the mechanism of injury happened for Williams, this most likely points to probably a grade 1 or grade 2 muscle strain. We will not know the severity or the full details of the injury until Jalen undergoes imaging through an MRI. This will confirm that location of the tear, the measures extent of the fiber damage, as well as determines involvement of the tendon versus that muscle belly. So recovery timeline for an NBA athlete. So typically we see for grade 1, it can take about 1 to 3 weeks. Grade 2 being 3 to 6 weeks, and then grade 3 taking that 2 to 3 months if surgery required. So for a playoff context, even a grade 1 can really impact a series. A grade 2 likely sidelines a player for most, if not all, of a round. So the key challenge with hamstring injuries is to have a high re-injury rate, especially if rushed back too soon. Now, we already know for Jalen Williams' injury history that he's suffered multiple hamstring injuries just this year, especially on that just right side. So it's very common, even after return, players often deal with reduced sprint explosiveness, hesitation on drives, as well as limited defensive mobility. And for someone like Jalen Williams, whose game relies heavily on burst, change direction, and transition plays, this is a significant concern. But hamstring injuries might not always look dramatic, but they're one of the most tricky injuries in basketball, especially in the playoffs where every game matters. Hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Let me know if you have any questions or comments down below, and thank you so much for watching.